watching the SID Young Engineer Spotlight Interview Series. This video is part of an ongoing interview series to showcase the achievements of senior display professionals and inspire young engineers from their career success and twists and turns. So today's video is the third in this series. I'm Kejia. I'm one of the volunteers behind this series, a video series, and I will be the main host for today's interview. Together with me today, we have the co-host Libo Weng here. And today we have Samantha Phenix, Sam, as our guest speaker. Sam has over 20 years of career ranging from engineering, business development, corporate leadership, and she has a history of driving display technology innovations across multiple demanding vertical markets, while serving in leadership roles at multiple companies such as Leyard, Planar, Intel, Dell, and Barco. We're very grateful to have Sam today to join us to talk about her story and share her words of wisdom. Especially this month is Women's History Month, and we feel really lucky to have Sam here. Let's welcome Sam to join this interview.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam.
Welcome,
Good
Sam.
to be here. Hi, guys.
So I was there at the Women's in Tech at SID Display 2019, and I really like the advice you said about what you were given to younger you, which is be true to yourself. And we have heard a lot of successful stories about women in tech and leadership, business world, etc. And we have encouraging girls to dream big and aim high. So nowadays, I think women are getting more and more attention, but also higher expectations, and especially how to be successful in their lives. How would you define successful women and for young professionals in general?
It's a good question. So I think success, it's like one of those relative terms, and that it means different things for different people at different times. And like for some people, it's about how much money they earn or what their job title is. And, for other people, it's about being recognized by their industry peers, say, or winning awards. For some, it might be about making a difference in the world and contributing to the advancement of like their specific area of research or science. But I guess the common theme that I see overall is that I personally would equate success with happiness. So there's this class called The Science of Wellbeing. It's taught by a Yale professor called Dr. Laura Santos. And it's such a fantastic course. It's online, it's free. So I encourage people to check it out. And the reason I'm bringing it up here specifically is one of the modules in the class is designed to help you figure out like what makes you truly happy. And it's not what you think, because it turns out like human beings are really bad at estimating what brings us joy. Our gut informs us, but in this case, it completely leads us in the wrong direction. So it's a fun class because they have a bunch of Yale students that are part of the videos that the professor makes as the module. So you get to see them and see how they interact. And, there's a lot of research there where these students are thinking like they have to earn like a certain amount of money to be happy. And as they go through the course, they come to realize like it's not just about that. So. Anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. The happiness and equals to the success.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think not only we should teach the girls to aim high, dream big, also just to figure out what you really like and what you're really happy with.
Yeah.
That will be the key to your success and happiness. Yeah, that's
totally
really nice. Also, I think one of the other topics that came up on the Display Week 2019 in your panel talk, you mentioned that EQ is very important at work, no matter what level you are in the company. So how can the young engineer who is fresh out from the school and new to the real world, how can they improve their EQ, and how can they sharpen their soft skills, and also sometimes have to deal with difficult people? How can they do that?
Yeah, so the class I just mentioned that the Science of Wellbeing is really a great tool for that, because there's a there's a section, there's a piece in there about mindfulness, and I think that's helpful. I don't know about you, but like over the last year during COVID, I mean, I've heard and seen a lot of more interest in this concept of like meditation and mindfulness, because it helps people manage stress and how they react to situations that are not in their control. And that's something that we face in work situations. And I think, just being able to accept what you can control and manage your reactions to people or a situation or a conversation, that just goes a long way in helping you be successful. I mean, the other thing is there, if you're like me and you're a person who's like likes to read, there's the quintessential book on EQ, emotional intelligence, by Daniel Goleman is really accessible. It's an easy book to read. And there's a ton of resources online too, like evaluation tools that people can take that help them figure out where their current level of EQ is, and what tools they can use to, to improve.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you any books that you're gonna recommend, but thanks for that recommendation. I think it's as a young engineer myself, I'm kind of like learning while working on that. Of course, sometimes I have to learn in a hard way, and I think in retrospect, if I can at least start reading some books before working in the real world, probably will be much more helpful. Another thing is, as I think also kind of helpful for me is the mentorship. It's like some conversation, just like me and you is having, is very helpful. So thanks for sharing that. So right now, you're in a very important position for more than one companies, and I was wondering, do you have any advice for young engineers to wanted to grow into the leadership roles, especially when we start out from entry-level positions? We don't usually get to lead any projects or lead a team. How can we get good in leadership without start leading, or how can we get noticed?
Yeah, I started at the bottom of the pile too, so I remember. I think a couple of things are helpful, and actually they hit on those previous questions you were asking too. So like volunteer to support your industry or your local community. It's a really good way to help develop those social skills, those soft skills, and even language skills. And I really think it helps build confidence, especially for people who are non-native language speakers. So, whether that's someone who's, an English speaker who's now living in Europe or in Asia, or vice versa, I think getting involved in volunteering in a non-professional situation, just it helps build confidence. It's also a great way to expand your leadership skills. And this is where I'm going to take the chance to plug SID and encourage our listeners to get involved and to help out with your local chapter. The SID website has info on the various chapter leads, so you can reach out to them directly. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then please connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, and I will help you find a home, because SID, we always need volunteers, and it's a great way to get in a room with maybe people you wouldn't necessarily get to be in a room with, and it's a great way for you to learn leadership skills, because there's plenty to do. And Display Week, I mean, it's a huge team. I mean, for the listeners that have been part of Display Week, you'll know, like, it's a large event. It's got tons of different things going on. And so there's a lot of opportunity there as well. Even if you just want to participate as a part of a committee or a part of a team to start, I think that's I know I'm doing a hard plug here, but it's definitely something I've found very valuable throughout my career. And then if you're not able to do something through SID, maybe you don't live close to the chapters, or you're just not available in the Display Week sort of time frame. The other thing I hear and need for a lot, at least in my local community, is the the mentoring program for students. So for high school students, especially for girls, they're often looking for people to help mentor in STEM. And again, that's a great way to develop leadership skills and social skills, and also just give back to your community.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's definitely not a half plug, as I totally agree with the SID volunteering. Even though nowadays is virtual right now, we still learn a lot. We still have a lot of things to do, and it's like really out of my expectation. Like, oh, I have to do video editing
Yeah.
in volunteering. Oh, things like that will just come up and then caught me off guard or caught us off guard, and then we just learn, stumble and learn, and then actually grow. So I totally agree with that. And then I really like the idea.
Yeah, and it's super safe. I mean, the SID volunteer community they are so nice. There are so many people that are like willing to help, and because you're volunteering, like nobody expects you to be perfect. You just try your best. And yeah, certainly I've had some stumbles myself. So it's been a good experience though.
Yeah. And I like the idea of giving back to the community and just reach out to those local schools. Um, and then I think it's also I think it's a very innovative way to build up a team ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Cool. Yeah, thank you for the suggestions. Um, okay, so next question, I think you probably been asked for several times. It's a topic about work and life balance, and um, and then we would like to ask you in a different perspective. So you have mentioned several times that it is important to engage both men and women in the conversation in order to improve the diversity in the technical or business world. I'm glad to see SID has started their efforts on this and having the male speaker last year in the Women in Tech 2020 Display Week. So, and I believe tech and business world is getting more and more aware of having this increasing women's representation, as well as the women's participation in other fields are increasing as well. However, sadly, I mean we are still noticing more some cases around the world about women have to pick their work over family, or if they wanted to start a family or having kids, and they're likely to have to sacrifice some degree on their career. But what do you think the companies, the government, and the whole society is missing in order to support the work-life balance for women in the workforce so that we can keep the diversity in this
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a huge issue, and unfortunately, it's just gotten worse over this past year due to the COVID. Um, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've seen so many news stories lately about just how negatively the pandemic has impacted professional women specifically. I was just reading one article, I think it was in Fortune magazine, but don't quote me, that was something like nearly 3 million American women have left the labor force just over the past year. And the reason they're leaving is this, ridiculously outdated and yet stubbornly persistent notion that women be the primary caregiver and homemaker. So, with schools being closed and everybody working remotely, I mean, it's just too much. And I think, hopefully this last year was kind of an anomaly, and that's not normal. And hopefully we can encourage some of those women to come back. And I think the way that we do that is by addressing the issue that was existing before, which is access to affordable and reliable childcare. And whether that's funded by employers or government, I'm going to leave that to the side for now and not get into the politics of it. But it's clear to me that having access to, reliable childcare that you're not paying your entire salary for, it just goes a long way in supporting the success of working moms, because it's just something they don't have to concern themselves with as much. Of course, that doesn't help when you look at the other issues like pay inequity and gender bias. But it certainly helps, and it's a concrete step that we can take as a society, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I remember. So my parents, they both work, and I remember in order to have my parents all in the work, I usually be left alone at home. Granted that I think sometimes back then I was happy to be alone at home, so I can do whatever I want to do. But still, I believe my parents will be worried about me, and if only there's some better system for child care in place, and I think adults can work much more com- committed at work, and then kids will be taken care of. So I think it's a win-win. And yeah, I totally agree that the childcare system needs to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next, I think Libo will start some more technical questions for you.
Yeah, hi, Sam. So next part, I would ask some questions about your exciting work and your vision. So first question I have is, could you briefly talk about what's your current company, what the new technology or product you are bringing to the display industry, and why are you excited in your work?
Yeah, sure. So the company's called Magwire, and our goal is to enable the next generation of flexible electronics using our new approach to produce transparent conductive films. And it came about when I was approached by a local state-funded innovation incubator here in Oregon to help them support their commercialization program. So this is a nonprofit that looks for opportunities to commercialize intellectual property from Oregon university research groups and then connect those with industry. And I think the challenge for them is not so much on the IP side. They have lots of research students and research groups, but they don't have so many business people who are willing to come and run a company. And I should mention that, so Magwire, they're just one of my clients. So early in 2020, early last year, I have spectacular timing. I chose that time to launch an independent consulting business focused on serving clients in the AV, audiovisual industry. And as you can imagine, that didn't quite work out how I originally anticipated. And in fact, I spent a lot of the first half of last year on volunteer work. For example, I led the effort to transform SID's Display Week from the physical event to the virtual event. So it was like a full-time job for 4 months to do that. And it was not just me, it was very much a team effort, but I took point on that. Thankfully, towards the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall last year, I started to see traction in client work. So I've been doing everything from like one-off engagement where I did a technical due diligence for an acquisition to I have some ongoing project work right now where I'm helping a manufacturer put together a business plan so they can move into an adjacent vertical market. I have a couple of startups where I'm on the advisor board, and then I have this Magwire startup technology company. So I have my grad student off working on the proof of concepts, and I'm busy writing grant applications and pitching VC companies for funding. So fun times.
Sounds like very interesting work.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So next question I have is you are the strategist across the many famous companies like Dell, Intel, and Planar, and delivered many products. So what's the secret to delivering a successful product from catching the customer's needs, translated to R&D efforts, and motivating the tech team and company on the product engineering, and then finally launching the product? So would you share a few tips to the engineers and entrepreneurs in our audience?
Sure. I'm not sure there's like one secret to this, but one approach that I've found really helpful is called design thinking. It's an iterative process where you try to put yourself in the shoes of your customer. It allows you to challenge your assumptions and then redefine the problems that you're trying to solve so that you can figure out alternative ways to get there that may not have been so obvious. It's almost, I feel a little bad mentioning it because I feel like it's almost a cliche at this point because it's pretty well known. Lots of companies have adopted design thinking, you know, like Coca-Cola, Apple, you know, all these big brands, Nike. And if you look, use your favorite search engine, whatever, if you Google it, design thinking, you'll see there's a whole bunch of materials out there that have been written on it. But it's basically this sort of rapid design and then iterate and prototype and get feedback loop process. And I found that to be really helpful. I think also what served me well is approaching my job always like an entrepreneur rather than an employee. Even when I was working in some of those big companies that you mentioned. I mean, yeah, of course, you know, you have to work hard if you're going to be successful, but the entrepreneurial aspect where you really try to be creative in how you get things done. You know, sometimes you just reach out beyond your immediate team can really help you be successful. And don't be afraid to ask questions. I think sometimes people are shy and they don't want to. I think I mentioned that like at the Women in Technology panel too. But I think people are scared to ask questions because they don't want to look stupid. But it's just such a good way to help build relationships with others, not just to help you learn. Because I think people, they like to explain things. They like to talk about things that interest them. Let me see. I think the other thing, you know, it really helps if you're willing to take risks and fail. And of course, it's good if you have a boss that supports that. And I guess finally, the last thing is like, I guess some of it has to do with luck, you know, it's not just hard work and having a good idea. I don't know do you guys ever listen, there's a podcast called How I Built This. The host always asks these famous startup CEOs, like, how much of your success was based on, you know, having a good idea or having a really good business plan or whatever, and how much of it was luck? And almost all of them say it was a bit of both. So I guess it helps to be lucky.
Yeah, luck is very important. Yeah, I like your the first method, design thinking. I think this is a very popular class in MBA program. Yeah. I found many MBA program like Berkeley, they have a class for the design thinking. So that's also why you have took the MBA program and learned this from that.
Yeah, and you know, that's the other, like, I'm trying to find positive things out of the last year, right? Things that came out of the pandemic that are helpful. And one of them is like the access to online education. There's so many online courses now. A lot of them are free that, you know, yeah, there's lots of resources for design thinking, and it's not an incredibly difficult concept. And I've seen, I don't know where I saw, probably in some Harvard Business Review or something magazine, but they did like a graph to show the last recession in 2008, I guess, and when the companies that used design thinking, how much quicker they recovered compared to those that didn't. So I mean, it's one of those like cliche business concepts, but at the same time, it seems like it works. It gets results. So
yeah. Yeah, actually, I just applied the EW MBA part-time MBA program in Berkeley. So I have a question to you. Is I see you have an MBA degree from the before. So what's the most important or helpful lesson you learned in MBA program?
Yeah. So I did my MBA a long time ago, and I was working full time, leading I think I was still just leading the software group at that time, but I was traveling a lot. So I was writing papers on airplanes and airports. The thing that was a lesson for me and surprised me is I, as an engineer, kind of thought the whole HR thing was a waste of time. Like, who cares about that part of the business? It's not important. And that's where I got my first exposure to leadership development and emotional intelligence and all of these soft skills, and how, and even organizational design, how you structure a team can have a huge impact on business success. And I ended up doing my thesis on effective org design that matches your business strategy. And at Barco, we actually implemented my design. So it was, if you had asked me when I start my MBA as an engineer, like which piece I would get, would not have guessed that it would be that. I thought I'd be into like but I was. I mean, I really enjoyed the strategy piece, and I was very good at accounting and finance. And those are important because that's, you know, the financial side is how you keep score. So like any game, you need to know how they keep track of who's winning. But the softer side, the human side, is so important too. And I completely underestimated that as not surprising, as a junior engineering leader. So.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. And last question, as you know, the AI and the IoT is very hot these years. There's a new item called the AIoT, represented for the artificial intelligence of things. It's a combination of the AI and the IoT infrastructure to achieve more efficient IoT operations, and improve the human-machine interactions and enhance the data management. So in your view, how is the display industry involved in this AIoT tech wave, especially in the North America market?
Yeah. Libo, when you first brought up the acronym, I wasn't even sure I understood it, but because I always think of like AI and IoT and big data and cloud, like they're all so interconnected. Like they all build and support on each other. But in terms of the display industry, I mean, there's so many opportunities for this AIoT. I mean, there's the classic examples of like wearables, like, you know, like our smartwatches or the AR, VR headset. But if I broaden my perspective and think overall display opportunities, you know, there's lots of ideas come. Like, for example, think about digital advertising. So in this case, I'm thinking like smart signage. So you can target your messaging to the person who's like walking by your store or walking by your displays, or maybe they're in the airport and they're walking by the departure board, and because of near field and your phone, like you could make the messaging specifically targeted to them. Or maybe you have, this scares people a little bit, but you have maybe video analytics that can tell from someone's gait, their age group, their demographic, or their sex, and then again, target the advertising based on that. Another display application could be like traffic management, because, you know, they already have those signs above the highway with, you know, right lane closed ahead or whatever, but they could do a much better job of managing traffic flow across a city by using AI to predict the flows, look at history and patterns, and then directing drivers routes based on it, you know, suggest alternative routes in order to help manage efficient traffic flow. So that's a couple examples that came to mind, but it's exciting. I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
That's exciting for us. We have a lot of work to do in the display industry. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Kejia?
I think, what is your secret on dealing with difficult people?
Oh, now if I had a secret. Okay, so I will tell you something that happened recently. As a older, wiser woman, no, maybe not wiser, but certainly older. So I recognize that some of the difficulty in the interactions is also based on my own bias, right? So maybe I will sit in a meeting with an older male and I assume that he is not respecting me, or not judging me, maybe it's too harsh, but like he's not respecting me because I'm a young woman. I'm not so young anymore. And so maybe I show up with that a little bit. And so I'm trying, with the mindfulness of always trying to be like, okay, make sure this isn't just you projecting your story onto the situation. And then there's times when it's just, that's exactly what's happening. So I had this happen recently where this guy was just being a jerk. It's like, clearly you can't comprehend this technical thing because you're a business person and you're a woman and you're not like a PhD. And it was like, it's not even a very, very complex thing. And I let him get away with it a couple of times because I didn't want to have a confrontation, because I think over Zoom, like it feel like if you don't have a personal relationship, it feels harder to address. Kicking myself because it's kind of gotten out of hand now, and I'm gonna have to like schedule a separate, like just one-on-one and kind of put him down, which I really don't want to do it, but I'm gonna have to, because I didn't address it at the beginning. I gave him too much credit that it was me being sensitive. And then I also hadn't quite developed the muscles to do these things over Zoom, because in person, I think it would have been different. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, other than like, it's good to check your own story, but it's okay to like also be like, okay, this is how I'm seeing the situation, you know, and like call it out. So.
Yeah, I think I've been reading a book called Own It, and then the book was also talking about sometimes the women leaders, we are trying to avoid confrontations and we try to maintain a relationship, but then sometimes they kind of have to swallow some of these things. And I think it's good to speak up, and then but also have our mind check first, and then just kind of like avoid any bias first, and then just make our voice heard as well. So yeah. Sam, do you have any final words for those people who wanted to volunteer in SID? I know you mentioned some already.
Yeah, I mean, I just do it. Like they say in here in Portland and Nike, you know, don't be shy, don't be scared. It's such a good organization. People are so kind. And we're just so happy to have other people help carry the load, because this is what this is. It's about community. So so yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and you can DM me if you can't find an opportunity that looks exciting. I'll help find one for you, because there is always work to be done. Here's my hope that because last year it was our first time and we were kind of just figuring things out, and we didn't have so many opportunities for networking, because it's hard, right? Making that transition between physical and virtual. So I'm hoping that we can do more of that this year. I know SID has some, like we have some technical tools that we can use. We could do like Zoom happy hour, where we all go to the exhibit hall together and then maybe go in different breakout rooms and talk about it. I don't know. I think we need to do better in how we engage with each other, because it's another year of doing it online. So.
Well, thank you so much, Sam, to share with us today. And we really learned a lot, and I really appreciate the time you spent with us.